In this lesson, we'll look at how Final Cut Pro references media files on a scratch disk. Then we'll start up Final Cut and take a quick look at the Workspace windows. Before diving into Final Cut Pro, there is a very important concept that every Final Cut user should understand. Every Final Cut Pro project requires two main elements. One, the project file itself, which is a relatively small file that keeps track of all of your editing decisions. And two, the actual media such as video, audio, and image files, which are stored outside of the project file in a location known as the scratch disk. In order to keep from losing files and having them go offline, it is important to remember that the Final Cut Pro project file does not actually contain any of the media, although it may seem like it does. Since all of the media used in your project is stored outside of the project file, you should always make sure that you are careful in selecting your scratch disk and that you always keep all of your project's media files together on the same scratch disk. With that in mind, let's go ahead and open up Final Cut Pro. First, click the Final Cut Pro icon from the dock. If you don't have a Final Cut icon in the dock, open it from inside the Applications folder. When Final Cut starts up, you may see some startup windows appear. One of these startup windows is the Choose Setup window. This is where you'll choose what type of video project you'll be working on. For standard mini DV material in the US, you'll be fine with the default setup of All Formats and Use DV NTSC. If you are working on HD material or material shot in the European PAL format, you can select the appropriate setup to match your project type. This is also the most convenient place to set your scratch disk for the project you're working on. Since I'll be keeping all my media on an external drive, I'll select this drive in the primary scratch disk box. If you haven't locked Final Cut's preferences, as I described in Lesson 1, you may not see this window, and you'll have to follow some additional steps to access your setup and scratch disk settings. After you choose your setup and select your scratch disk, you may see the External AV warning box. This box indicates that Final Cut Pro is unable to detect a connection to your camcorder or videotape recorder, also known as your VTR. If you need to capture footage from the camcorder or output a video project to tape, you should check the connections of your camcorder, make sure it is powered on and in playback mode, then click Check Again. If you don't need to use a camcorder during your edit session, just click the Continue button to proceed without a camcorder connection. Since setting the scratch disk is one of the most important steps in starting up Final Cut Pro, let's look at another way to access the scratch disk settings once the workspace appears. Click on the menu bar where it says Final Cut Pro and then select System Settings. In the System Settings window on the Scratch Disks tab, you can click on the Set button to assign a scratch disk for your project. You should also select this same scratch disk for the waveform cache, the thumbnail cache, and the autosave vault. Once you've set the scratch disk, you can go ahead and close the System Settings window. If we were starting a new project, it would be a good idea at this point to name the project file and save it to the scratch disk. To save this project, I'll go to the File menu and select Save Project. Since I'm using an external hard drive for a scratch disk, I'm going to save the project file to that drive, so the project file will be on the same hard drive as all of the media files I'm going to be using. Let's go ahead and hide Final Cut for a minute and take a look at our scratch disk now. Right-click on the Final Cut icon in the dock and select Hide. If we look at the scratch disk, we can now see our project file and a folder that Final Cut has created called Final Cut Pro Documents. Inside this folder we can see other folders, including the Capture Scratch folder, where all the footage captured from a camcorder will be stored, and the Autosave Vault, where Final Cut will keep auto-saved versions of our project every 30 minutes. Let's go back to Final Cut by clicking its icon in the dock and take a look at the workspace. In the Final Cut Pro workspace, you will see an arrangement of 4 large windows and 2 small windows. These windows are known as the browser window, the place which lists the media files and clips that you'll be working with in your project, the viewer window, the place where you can change the attributes of the clip, such as the clip's starting and ending point, also known as the in point and out point, change effects or filter parameters, transition settings, and access Final Cut's built-in video generators for text and other video material. The Canvas window, the place where you can view the edited material that is arranged in the timeline. The Timeline window, the place where you arrange, edit, and composite your video and audio material. There are also two small windows, the toolbar and the audio level meters. If for any reason you accidentally close one of the Workspace windows, or if you want to choose a different layout for the windows, you can go to the Window menu in the menu bar. To restore a window you've accidentally closed, click the name of the window to make it reappear. Windows that are currently displayed have a check mark next to them. To change the window layout or to restore the window positions to their correct location, you can go to the Window menu, then to the Arrange submenu and choose Standard, 2 Up, or one of the other arrangements. Throughout these tutorials, I'll be sticking with the standard arrangement.